Cliona Furey is the hair designer on Nightmare Alley, and Joanne MacNeil is the makeup designer on Nightmare Alley. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. It's a pleasure to talk with you both today. I wanted to begin with the extensive, or what I imagine was a very extensive research process for the film. You're working on something that's period piece from the 30s and 40s in two vastly different worlds, the kind of carnival world and the kind of upper echelons of society. So I just wanted to know, how did you start? Where did the research process begin? And what did you find most valuable as you were kind of deciding how to create these worlds?
Who's going first?
I can start first. Well, really, we knew we had to create these two worlds that could exist in the same film. And the class struggle really drew us in. And that's where I really focused my research. And I not only wanted to see what was available to the people in classes at the time, makeup wise, but also what was going on in the world around them and how it would affect them. And, we had, when we started with the Carnival, it was the 1939 it was kind of the end of the Great Depression. And we kind of wanted to show the effects on what it had on the people. And honestly, for me, I had like two sides to the Carnival. We had the carny workers and we had the patrons. And then in the city, we went to a more glamorous, larger than life and where they showed their wealth. So it was really, with the city, it was really about the well-to-do and the desire to be one. So that's kind of where our research went for that. So.
For me, I'm not huge for the most part on collecting pictures of Hollywood starlets of the time, because I just don't feel that people looked like that. The only one who was the femme fatale who could look like that was Lilith, and Guillermo gave me a picture of Lauren Bacall as a reference for what he wanted Lilith to look like, and Kay did a beautiful job doing her hair. But for the most part, I look at videos. I researched Ringling Brothers Circus. I studied circuses, burlesque dancers of the time as well, because we had peep show girls and things like that. So I wanted the hair to look very organic. And nobody looks like a Hollywood actress in a headshot that every day. So we wanted to show that. And what was really nice is that the characters are already there in the script. There's a huge range of people. And for the Carnival, I kept people really, like I said, organic. And I went with sort of more dry, frizzed textures, and then switched it up to high octane shine for the city. Made the hair a little longer, transitioned a few of the characters into the city, which was fun. And we used a lot of wigs for that. But I was big on collecting videos and things, and I found a video of a jazz festival that I showed Guillermo, and he loved it. And I said, I think this is the Carnival people. What do you think? And he said, you're exactly on the right page. So I would take screenshots from old movie clips and not movie clips, video clips of real people, and then post them all over the walls of my trailer.
Yeah, you both touched on so many of the questions I want to ask, but before we get into some of the specifics of the film, I just wanted to ask, at what point in the process do you both begin to collaborate? I know you've worked on many projects together in the past, so I'm wondering on Nightmare Alley specifically, at what moment do you start, sharing ideas and designs? And also, since you've worked together, what kind of shorthand have you developed that just makes the process, I imagine, so much more seamless? Cliona, I can start with you.
My process starts with having wigs made, which is months in advance, and Joe and I were on two different projects at the time. So then we both had phone call meetings with Guillermo and our executive producer, Miles Dale. So the whole concept for the whole film was discussed. And Joanne and I would keep in touch on WhatsApp But once we're physically there together and prep, it's every day. We strongly collaborate together with our costume designer, Louis Kira, as well, because it all has to work together. For instance, the character Xena, knowing that Louis was going more bohemian with her dress and that she was in her prime in the 20s. So her costume was backdated a little bit. So Joanne and I backdated her, and we went for sort of a fading star look with her. And no, the makeup and the wigs and the costume, we all collaborate heavily together. It's an everyday thing, whether it's texts or we're talking together on set, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like we always kind of, we always talk about what each other is doing, and, you know, all our researches and everything. It's just, you know, we're always kind of communicating with each other about what we're going to do. So
And Guillermo's a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
How we work is, I've worked with him for a long time now. So all the actors will be told to grow their hair, grow their facial hair. And if they can, if they're not coming right off another film, just show up like that. And Guillermo, before the pandemic, would come into the trailer and we'd say, okay, maybe just let's leave the beard and cut the hair. And no, we don't like that now. So let's take the beard off and leave a goatee and a mustache and see what that looks like. And it evolves. There's a creative process that happens. But Joanne's facial hair and mustaches has to work with my haircuts or my wig. So it's heavily, we work together heavily.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Joanne, you mentioned earlier talking a bit about, you know, the work on the carnival scenes, which open, you know, I'd say the first third or so of the film. I just wanted to get a sense from the both of you of the scope of that. It seems like such an enormous task in terms of not just the principal actors, and as you're saying, the different kind of classes of the principal actors, but also just the background, the extensive background and crowd scenes. Can you both talk a bit about, you know, just working on capturing that kind of look and the grittiness, and also just the magic of that, you know, Depression era carnival?
Well, for me, the background is very important to us because, you know, it really does sell the worlds, and all the hard work that we put into, you know, the main cast can be undone by an incorrect background performer. So we did spend a lot of time in getting them right. And when we were in the carnival, like I said, I really had two sides to the carnival. I had the carnies and I had the patrons. And you know, the carnies were kind of shifty, and they were like desperate travelers, scraping by by making a living, and, you know, hiding from their pasts. And we wanted, you know, we wanted to basically show them kind of broken down, weathered, and kind of dirty, both inside and out. And we used like a lot of soot powders and dirt puffs and grime sprays just to get these layers of texture to them. And then, you know, we, on the other side of it, we have the patrons, you know, where they're almost all our patrons were background performers, and we made the conscious choice to have them stand out from the carnies. And you know, the patrons for the most part were lower class income people, and they were using the fantasy and the awe of the carnival as an escape of the everyday depression of the era, you know. And then, you know, we get into the city, that's, you know, a whole different set of challenges. And we're at this time, we're in 1941, and we're kind of set on the where Europe was on the brink of war. And most of the city took place, you know, during Stanton's performances and his interaction with Lilith and his con, you know. But, you know, the city was about, like I said, was about the well-to-do and the desire to be one. And, you know, the women were often larger than life and flaunted their wealth through their makeup choices, and often done to the nines and glamorous on a night out, you know. So that's kind of how we tried to differentiate between the two worlds, but still trying to keep within a very cohesive look to these worlds. So mhm.
I tended to, there were hundreds of background, both at the carnival and in the city at the Copacabana. I made little storylines with some of them, and they were all very important to me, right down to the gray-haired lady with the cigarette hanging out of her mouth who runs the roulette wheel, and you'll see Stanton walk past her. And I remember the day one of my hairdressers said, and her hair was really sort of tightly rolled, and there was a net on her hair at the back, very harshly rolled. She looked hard, and then they gave her that cigarette, and I watched how she played it, and I said, leave her hair alone and leave the net on it. It's perfect. You know, I was obsessed with that lady. But we also had the Peep Show girls, and so I had researched Faith Bacon and Sally Rand, these burlesque dancers from the 30s, and I was really taken by their stories. So I did up some wigs and pieces for them, and I showed them to Guillermo and said, can I do this? And he loved it. So those Peep Show girls, you'll see them on the stage, but you'll also see them walking down the boardwalk past Molly often. So I sort of had little backstories for everyone, but it was a big range of work and a vast amount of people. And I had an incredible team. But everybody that you saw on camera was prepped, whether I had somebody taking the background people's photos and we were just pre-cutting them in, but we were pre-cutting them at least a week in advance so they didn't look freshly cut at the carnival. All the women, whether we assigned wigs to them or we had certain styles that we wanted them to be in, and I just wanted them to be organic and real. And they were sort of more frizzed, real hair. And then into the city, they were very set and formed and high octane and dressy. And so that was a lot of fun. But I had an incredible team of people. That's the only way we got that done.
Yeah, one of the things I love that both of you are talking about are the transitions out of the carnival into the city. And one of the things I think is so effective about that transition is both of your work on Rooney Mara's character, as we kind of see her go from, the carnival and her life established there to, working with Bradley Cooper's character. So I'm just wondering, how much was that look in particular important on making these transitions feel seamless? And also, what kind of collaboration do you have with Rooney and the rest of the cast, obviously, on finding, a comfortable and character-specific look for each of them? And Cliona, we can start with you.
Okay. Rooney did have a lot to do with it, and Rooney had it. We did half the movie, the last part first, and then we had a world pandemic and shut down. The whole world shut down for 6 or 7 months, and Rooney had a baby. So I originally had different wigs for her to transition her. Guillermo actually had planned a long wig for her for the 30s, but I had a strong feeling she should be in a little bob, and that she would look more vulnerable with the simple little bob, because I felt she's the ingenue, she's the only pure one. She should look simple and vulnerable. And so we did that, and then I put her into a little bit of a longer wig for the 40s, and I wanted to show that she was trying to look more womanly and worldly for Stanton, because Lilith is always lingering around, and she really is a femme fatale. So I tried to show that she was looking more mature, but not really. So you'll see her hair's pinned back a lot whenever she's doing the shows with Stanton, and whenever we had her in the hotel room, she's always eating chocolates, and her childishness is there. So I would sort of tie her back in softly in a really simple way. But yeah, Rooney, it was very involved in that. And it all, the creative process was beautiful with Guillermo too. And we actually had a lot of fun with her because her little baby was on her lap by the time we came back from the pandemic. So that was really lovely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and for me, I feel like we had quite a transformation with Molly, because when we first saw her in the carnival, she was fresh faced and innocent. And then as we moved into the city, she kind of embraced some of the city life, and that was kind of shown within some of her makeup choices. And we moved to a different color palette with her, where we moved into more medium brown and beige highlights with a glamorous red lip that was reminiscent of the era. And for me, sometimes when I read the script, I kind of work from back to front, and I kind of see what the outcome is. And the whole scene with Rooney, where she was Dory and putting the blood on her hands, and she had this speech with Stan that she had had enough, that to me, that was kind of symbolic of the death of her innocence, basically. And she's kind of in this deception with him now. And we kind of follow her through that way. Like, those scenes were really important in the end, where you see her, where she's kind of had enough. And that's kind of how I took it when I read the script, that this transformation of her, I kind of started from the back to the front. So
yeah, I'm so glad you brought up that scene, because I wanted to ask you both about it. And before I let you go, I do have to ask you about one more scene in particular. So if you haven't seen Nightmare Alley, pause this, go watch it, because I'm going to kind of reveal that last shot of the film, which is so important and so shocking and so moving. So I just wanted to ask both of you about, because you're doing a close-up on Bradley Cooper's face, and we're getting this incredible long shot of his reaction, which is so complex. So what was it like working on that final shot, knowing it had to be just right, and then getting it perfect, which is exactly how it came out?
Well, to me, that was my absolute favorite scene of the movie. And I waited from the beginning of first day for that scene of the movie. And, I think, there was throughout the film, there were a lot of little breadcrumbs along the way with Stan. And it started, basically in the beginning, when we first meet the geek, and all the little things that kind of, happened to him, and all these things about where his destiny is basically going to be by the end of the film. Even from when he looks in the mirror, when we first have that interaction with the geek about, you are a sinner, and, all those little things. It just kind of starts telling you where Stan is going to end up. And that for me was basically it was him. We just kind of knew that for me, that was, it's so hard for me to explain, because it was such a I knew, like I said, my favorite part of the film, and it was really, Stan, the end of Stan, basically Stan Carlisle. And, like I said, it was all the little breadcrumbs along the way that kind of led you to that point, so.
I liked Stanton's transition. His look transitions through the movie really nicely, and he goes through it all just like Molly does. But his hair and his look was it was his own hair, and very nicely done for the period, and kept it downtrodden looking. And then when he goes to the city, and I have to credit Laurie McCoy Bell for doing his hair. She did a great job. And he's so slicked, sort of Clark Gable slicked with that mustache, but he looks like a bit of a phony, like it's sort of overdone in a way, which is really appropriate. And it works in with everyone else. And then at the end, Guillermo wanted him to have longer hair. So that's a beautiful wig. And I just think it worked out perfectly, because he's the new geek. So yeah, that was a beautiful scene. And I think that Laurie and Jordan really nailed his look for that last moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Cliona Furey and Joanne MacNeil, congratulations to you both on the beautiful and extraordinary work on this film, Nightmare Alley. Thanks so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.